Welcome back for another special edition of The View from the End Zone on YSN Live and Spotlight Illustrated. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing another new Stark County football coach, Isaiah Robinson, to the St. Thomas Aquinas football team. Coach, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to learn about you. This is, back a long time ago, as a coach, I heard the saying that if you're a head coach in Stark County, you're doing something pretty special. This is where football, the cradle of football, is so important to everybody, and it's so exciting, and you want to be in a place where football is exciting and important to everybody. And now you're at St. Thomas. Congratulations, Coach.
It's honestly, it's still a little surreal to me. Just growing up here in Northeast Ohio, playing football here, and knowing all the great coaches that came out of this area. And now that I'm a part of the brotherhood,
Yes, you are.
I'm just excited, that the torch is getting passed to me, and hopefully I could just uphold the mantle.
Coach, in our little conversations before we got on air here, I can tell you're prepared to do that.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the viewers, tell us a little bit about your background, and I know you got a great background of football as a player and as a coach. Tell us a little bit about what you bring to St. Thomas.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna bring an affectionate attitude of playing football the hard way, playing football the right way, and playing with passion.
Mm-hmm.
The guys on the 97 team that I played with at Kent McKinley when we won the state championship and national championship, a lot of them say, I was the heart of the defense. Why? Just because I kept them motivated, at any given time, that we thought that, we might be slipping or, things might be getting away from us. Like in our playoff game against Ignatius,
Mm-hmm.
when we was up at the Rubber Bowl and, we were down, and I remember one time being in the huddle and telling the guys, because some of our fans was starting to leave, time was, an essence and, and it wasn't looking good,
Mm-hmm.
So I just remember telling, my guys in the huddle that, look at the people leaving, and, it's all good because when we were going through the dog days of summer, when it was
Mm-hmm.
two-a-days and we were in the weight room and we out there doing up downs and push-ups and everything and sprints, we pushed each other and it was only us. When we had this goal, like we've talked about before, we had this goal when we were children. And, so by any means, we were going to go out to achieve it, when we did, Lord willing. That's just the type of attitude, state championship attitude I want to bring to St. Thomas at, win, lose, or draw, we're going to play like men. We're going to go out there and compete like competitors. And, we're going to just bring it every single week.
I like what you say about it's only us, because that is something unique to the huddle in football, is that, I always thought, I love to play in front of big crowds. But really, once you start playing, the crowd didn't even exist because you're with your buddies and you got a mission to do and everybody's doing their part. And that's something unique and special. And that's a great piece leading into what you're talking about, the heartbeat of a football team.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's one with players.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Coaches direct things. Coaches get them in place.
Yeah.
Coaches lead, but players win football games.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why, we developed a brotherhood, and that's what I want to bring to St. Thomas. First of all, we got to develop a brotherhood, and it starts in the weight room, So, and I told them a little bit about our experience. We develop a brotherhood in the weight room, at practice, holding each other accountable every day, and competing at practice every single day. It was just funny because I was telling some of the players the other day over at St. Thomas that, when I played my senior year at McKinley, we played St. Thomas. That year it was the game before, I believe we played the team out west that wears orange. Oh. You know what I mean? I look, still can't say the name.
Right.
But that we competed hard at practice. So, when we went out and played St. Thomas that week, at halftime it was 70-0 or whatever. And not because St. Thomas was that inferior or, they had less of a players, but it was just a level of competition that we competed at practice with each other. Yeah. So, we wanted to make some of the games easy, and, we did it twice. I mean, that year we went out and played Glenville. Of course, back then, Glenville was not the Glenville that they are now. But, they had some athletes and they was competing at everything. But, we knew we needed to go out and handle our business. It was games that you're supposed to go out there and win It's games you're supposed to go out there and dominate. Yeah, right. There's games that might be on the calendar like, okay, we might be in the dogfight, so we just went out there every week and handled our business no matter what the opponent was. And once again, I was telling those players, not to brag about what I did or anything, because I'm not the type of coach that's in my day, you know what I mean? I don't want to be that type of coach, but I just wanted to give them that experience. So when we start our weight room workouts and things of that sort, they understand why a coach is so excited, why a coach is so serious about every little detail that's going on, and, why I'm pushing them to the next level. Why? So we can go out here and perform at our best. That's all.
Well, Coach, in our conversations earlier, and you alluded to it there, you played for McKinley. As a player, you went as far as you could go.
Yes, sir.
And achieved the state title and a national title.
Yeah.
And that's the perspective that, that in talking to you earlier, that you're bringing into this.
Yes.
That's possible. We can do that.
Yeah.
Because you know what? You talked about it when you were young and you were with your other players and kids. You said that's possible. And that no goal can be achieved if you don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
And so that's exciting that you bring that to them.
Yeah, it is. Like, I give you a quick story. Like, our junior year, we lost to St. Ignatius twice. And, we kind of knew going into our senior year that, we would probably have to see St. Ignatius twice, one time in the regular season and one time in the playoffs. But, so once again, it was, a mindset that, okay, by any means, we got to get it done. I mean, I was telling our players today that, it was times that our coaches, because we worked hard to practice, they might have said, blew the whistle, all right, no conditioning today, fellas, good work, But we still got on the line and did some extra work and got it in. So, once again, that's just a mentality that I want these guys to understand, what it takes to get to that level, because it's not easy.
Right.
You can have all the talent in the world and everything, but it just don't mesh. Some things just have to come together. I mean, when we were playing Ignatius the second time at the Rubber Bowl, two receivers in the same area is usually never a good thing. But it was a good thing for us. The ball bounced off Matt Curry's head and went into Fred Wilcox's hands, and he took it all the way down to the 1 yard line. So, in that aspect, two receivers in the same place was good for us. But,
argue with having a little bit of luck.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. So it takes all of those things to achieve the dream. So, but we're starting with the foundation of achieving that dream. You know what I mean? And that's for one, believing and just saying, why not us? Why not? Yeah, we understand where we were and, things of the past and all of that, but this is us right now. So guess what? We ain't got nothing to lose. Let's move forward, let it all hang out and go.
Right. That's exciting. Yeah. So, Coach, you bring a wealth of player experience. I know you've been coaching for 20 years, experience there. A little bit about that, what you bring to St. Thomas with that.
Man, the lovely thing of my coaching experience in my journey was I was able to coach everything from flag football to high school football. So, I was able to coach on a lot of different levels. Even, one of the flag football teams that I had was a girls team.
Oh, wow.
And that was rough, you know what I mean? But, and actually they went to a championship and won it.
That's great.
They was raw. I loved them. But I was able to coach from flag football to high school football. I coached at Akron Bookdale High School. I coached at Ken Timken High School. I coached at McKinley High School. I coached at St. Thomas before and Alliance High School. So I've been able to be at a mixture of different schools and different programs and be under different head coaches, who gave me so much love. They gave me so much game and knowledge of the game of football. And it's just surreal that, Coach Henderson, who was the coach last year at St. Thomas Aquinas, he gave me an opportunity, to coach high school football over at Timken High School. So, and I learned so much from him. So it was kind of, bittersweet that, I'm the next man up, after him, but I know he's proud of me and I'm just thankful for him for, putting this in me because he is one of the coaches that helped me along my journey. But, Mike Cooks, Antonio Hall, Claude Brown, Coach Goodman up at Alliance, those guys up there, I love them. All of those coaches just showed me so much love and I learned so much from them and they helped me get to this position where I'm at now.
That's exciting. We talked to the coach last year. He did a great job and I know he put a lot of work in the offseason. I know you're looking at that now in terms of your offseason. And on top of that, I read that Hibbett Sports, you got a big
Not
to throw a little tag out there.
It's all good. Listen, look, Hibbett Sports, Saturday, 11 a.m. We cutting the ribbon. We busting Hibbett Sports wide open. St. Thomas, we in full effect. Let's go.
Yeah, they're donating some to your
athletic program. Yes, sir. Yeah. So
tell us a little bit about what you're doing here in the off season. And I know you talked about it was important to be in the school. You were in the school today.
Yes, sir.
Talking to guys, but then that, and then the weight room. Talk to us about the off season.
Yeah, so we're meeting with the players tomorrow.
Okay.
For the first time. Like I said, we've been inside the school, rubbing elbows, eating lunch with them, getting them excited, talking to them, walking the halls with them, making sure they get into class, on time. But doing the little things and talking to them and just trying to gain a rapport with them. But, they asked me. I didn't have to ask them. I mean, one of the first things that those dudes asked me was, Coach, when is we getting to work?
Yeah.
When are we going to get in the weight room? So, Lord willing, we'll be in the weight room here Monday. Right after school, we'll be in the weight room, and that's where it's going to start. That's where the competing starts. That's where the grind starts. Everybody's here, the cheerleaders and the mascots and the smoke, but, nobody see the blood, sweat, and tears inside of the weight room. So, and I told them, we need to get inside of the weight room. We need to compete against each other. We need to grow a bond with each other. We need us as a staff. We need to see where our players' strengths are at. We need to see where our weaknesses are at so we can turn the strengths into greatness, turn the weakness into strengths or whatever, so we can start rocking out on all four cylinders, So, the players is excited, and so that's where it's going to start, with a competitive attitude in the weight room starting Monday.
Yeah, that's you're right. You're right about that. And that creates such confidence in players, getting them stronger and physically ready for football, the demands of football.
Yes, and they want to do it.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good. So Coach, I was also excited to read about the fact that you're into youth development.
Oh, yes, sir.
That part that you talk to us. I know you said a little bit about flag, but, how are you looking to develop your guys?
Yeah, well, as far as, player development, just strictly being on the field, once again, I mean, we're going to identify, evaluate our team, see where our strengths and weaknesses is at. And, we're going to take it slow because we want to do the little things right. Mm-hmm. We're not in the position to where we could throw what we might believe as far as X's and O's at them. We have to break them down, watch some film, and see exactly where they at so we can cater to them.
Players, formations, plays? that sound familiar?
Yeah, a little bit, So, that's how we want to go about it. But, but that's just the worm at the end of the hook. You talked about, developing guys. The most thing that we're excited about is that, and we're thankful to God for, is that we're going to be able to develop these kids into men. Mm-hmm. The coaches that come along with me, some of them are some of my former players. Yeah. That I coached, that I built lifetime relationships with, since they were teenagers. And, they have a passion to give back to the community. They have a passion for football. And, they just want to get in where they fit in and do whatever they can to help develop, these guys, So I was talking to Stevie Miller, the other day. And, shout out to Stevie getting into the Hall of Fame this week, or maybe not this week, but here soon. And everything, played at Ohio State. And, he was just saying to me the other day that, he was like, because I coached him at Pee Wee's.
Okay.
And he was like, man, Coach, if it wasn't for you, I don't think I would have made it at Ohio State and things of that sort. And of course, Stevie was one of those guys you didn't really have to push like that. Mm-hmm. He was really, honestly, the first guy there and the last one to leave at practice at 11 years old. You know what I mean? So we just put, more into him and just helped him along his way. So that's what we want to do. The game of football is going to end for all of these guys one day. And that's what I talked to him about a little bit today. So guess what? Whatever you want to do, we'll have a bio ready for you. We're going to develop a plan for you as soon as we meet, from whatever, if you're a freshman or even if you're a senior right now. What do you want to do after you walk across that stage at St. Thomas? We're going to help you with. And guess what? Afterwards, whether if it's, I just want to become a working man, we'll help you fill out the application. If you want to go to school, we'll help you with that. If you want to get a trade, we'll help you in any aspect of your life, because we want to see our young boys grow up into men, be fathers, productive men in society, husbands, and men of God. So, that's our motivation.
That's fantastic. I know that I read that in the bio in terms of like your plan, but that is exactly, I mean, football, that experience of football,
Yes.
which I believe that's why I love football so much, is that it does help foster, strong young men ready to move into society.
Yep.
And then wrapping it and guiding it like you're talking about, that's exactly what we need. That's fantastic, Coach. And I know that St. Thomas has really been working hard over the last year. We had the principal in here last year, back last fall when he was just becoming the new principal, about the push and the culture that they're developing over at St. Thomas. And you sound like you're right in the path with that.
Yeah. They're making some good moves right now, and I know one of the things that they were really adamant about is turning this football program around, getting it, back to where it used to be with guys that I know, like Mike Rinaldi and the guys like that when they played in the early 80s, Richie Williams, when they won the state championship and stuff like that, they're hungry.
Yeah.
President French and Principal Irvine, they're hungry.
Yeah.
I know Principal Irvine talked to me multiple times about ringing the bell. You know what I mean? Waking up the neighborhood, ringing the bell. You know what I mean? And, it's just about getting excited. Once again, it goes back to Stark County. Stark County football. Me and my wife was talking the other day that, just Ohio, with it being the birthplace of football, and Ohio reigns supreme other than highway construction, it reigns supreme in just Stark County football. And, we want to get back to, Knights out here fighting and Knights being respectable and Knights competing every weekend and week out. So, when I talked to French and when I talked to Principal Irvine in an interview process, that was one of the things that were adamant on, that they wanted to bring a guy in that they believe was a winner, a competitor that cared about the kids, cared about the program, and wanted to develop these guys into, once again, productive citizens in society. And, the track record speaks for itself, with the state championship, a lot of the places that I went to, not saying because of me, but from the nucleus of guys that I were around, I was able to be around some winning programs along my coaching career, and I was able to learn from, these great head coaches I was around. And, so I'm just bringing that to the table, once again, Jamar Martin playing at Ohio State, of course, we all know how they do down there in Buckeye land, Columbus. So we just want to bring that mentality, and just, give, St. Thomas alumni something to be proud about again.
Right.
As far as football-wise.
In the football area. Yeah, I agree with you. I grew up in Louisville, and I knew St. Thomas during their heyday.
Right.
And it's exciting to have that positive energy and that excitement back into that. Coach, I think that, tell us a little bit about you, and you don't have to get into complete X's and O's, and I know players will drive all that in terms of where you're going, but, do you come in with a defensive perspective, offensive perspective?
Well, like I say, right. Yeah, both, because my whole life I played both sides of the football. Now, as a player at McKinley, I was more well-known from the linebacker aspect. So people think, he's defense. But, I was telling somebody.
See-ball, hit ball.
Exactly right. Old school linebacker, just get there. You know what I mean? But, one of the things that I learned from playing, linebacker, and I played middle linebacker, that you had to read had to read the offense.
Right.
So, there was times, because I was a student of the game, I was a film junkie, so there was times that, I would see guys, teams break the huddle, they would come out and get the lining up, and I would hear their calls and things of that sort. And, I would be able to echo to the team and let them know what was going on. And we was able to execute and get to the football fast, because of being a student of the game. But that's what I'm saying. I was able to watch offense a lot. But once again, I've learned under a lot of great head coaches over these past years. Once again, Coach Goodman over at Alliance, you see the numbers that we put up over there at Alliance offensively. So, while I was doing the scout team defense, I was taking notes. Oh, okay, Coach, I see what you're doing over there.
Yeah.
So right now, excuse me, so we're gonna bring a offense and defensive mindset, to the plate, and we're gonna let the chips fall where they may.
I don't know if you're ready to talk about staff yet, but I know that you're excited about the staff you're putting together and bringing in.
Yeah, I am. Jamar, he's coming in. one of these guys that's dear to me is Elijah Chungu.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that name. He played over at St. Thomas with us, under Mike Cooks when I was over there before. He was a guy that was looking for an opportunity. He played over at McKinley. Things wasn't going his way, so he was looking for an opportunity. So he reached out to us, came over to St. Thomas, did his thing, went to John Carroll University, played there, started 3 years, and last year he just had a internship with the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, nice.
So, he's going to be in town this year. Yeah, most definitely. So, he reached out to me this year and, he's going to coach with me this year, and he's going to just be another example to the kids as far as this is a prime example of the opportunity that we presented to him. He took full advantage of it, and now look at it. So he's going to be on our staff, and we're still trying to figure out, we got guys that are, on the fence and, got other opportunities, other places. So, we was just awarded this position last week.
Right.
So, right. So I didn't want to, tell him like, I need you to be on the staff and, it didn't go our way. You know what I mean? But once again, we have full confidence, we have faith in the Lord that he was going to do the right thing. And here we go. And, any and everybody that I talk to as far as staff, they have the same mentality that I do. We want to build student athletes. We want to make sure these dudes are dudes off the field, that they succeed off the field in the classroom first and get funky on the football field. You know what I mean? And that's what we want. And, we just going to get after it. We got guys that's going to be passionate, ready to demonstrate, and I was telling one of my coaches the other day, I'm going to have to start hitting the treadmill so I can get out there and demonstrate. And, if I got to drop into a coverage and show a guy, whatever, but we just so excited about the opportunity. But, coaching staff, to answer your question, we still working on a few guys, but, we got guys in the works, that's ready to go and, that's ready to make St. Thomas do some things this year.
So, in terms of the 30 days as, head coach, it's always a blur.
Oh, yeah.
First 30 days, interviews and phone calls and all the things you're looking at. But I would imagine, like you said, you're going to meet players tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay. You're working on the staff and then get to know your players, get them in the weight room and then develop what you're going to do.
Yeah. And also it's important to us that, not just meeting the players and all of that, we're inside the school because we want to meet the staff. We want to meet the teachers because we're going to be working with them directly, hand in hand. We want to back the administration. We want the administration to back us. Like I say, we want to be inside the school, talking to the teachers, making sure that there's anything that we can do, making ourselves available, anything we can do to help. Yeah. We want to eventually meet with the parents, and assure the parents that they are in good hands, because I know a lot of the parents were, wondering if there was going to be a program, but don't worry. We're going to have a program. We're going to play football. We're going to get after it, and we're going to give the parents something to be excited about. And once again, to reiterate that their children are in good hands, that we're the type of guys that, once again, we're committed.
Yes.
And it's just not for the football season. It's just not while you're a student at St. Thomas Aquinas. This is a lifetime relationship that we're going to sign in blood. No. And, and we're going to be there, for them. So, we want to meet with the former alumni, to talk about, things, from the past. And so we can let them know our plans for the future and, where we're headed. So, we can build a community because that's just one of the things, why I was attracted to St. Thomas and always kept my ear out to them because, when I coached here before, I felt the love. I felt that it was a nice, tight community or whatever, and they're just hungry to get a winning program back. So we just want to reassure that we're going to do that. It might take a little time, but we're here for other things also too.
Building the blocks.
Right. So we just want to build that foundation with everybody that's involved, with the St. Thomas, program. So
that's exciting, Coach. I'll tell you what. I could see if I was, I could go back, I don't know how many years now, it'd be like 40 years. If I'm sitting back in an elementary or a high school, I'd want to play for you. You're exciting, Coach.
And I'm just excited. I am who I am. I'm transparent. I mean, I love the game of football. I mean, it's done a lot for me. Coaching football did a lot for me. Like I was telling some of the players today, years in between of me not coaching, I officiated football. So yeah, right. So I got the other aspect up, and it was funny from being a coach, and then I start officiating football, I had a little sympathy for the coaches because it was like, man, I know where you guys are coming from, you know what I mean? So, but, football has been a blessing to me.
Right.
A gift from God, honestly. So I'm so thankful to Christ for it, and he's just let me use football as a way to develop relationships, and lasting relationships, and, just help. Yeah. Like I say, I got young guys or whatever that want to coach, former players. Another one, Preston Mitchell. I don't know if you guys remember him. He played at St. Thomas for us when we were out there before. He's doing big things in his life right now. And he reached out to me. Yeah. It was like, Coach, I heard you got the job, and I'm like, come on, P, let's go. I need you, so. And those are just some of the things, that we want to do. And, we just excited about it.
Oh, Coach, I can tell. It sounds like you're putting everything in place. It really sounds fantastic. It brings to mind for me, I played college at Gannon University.
Oh, yeah.
We were the Knights.
Yeah, and most definitely.
Our little chant was, what time is it? It's nighttime.
Nighttime, yeah.
So you can tell right now at St. Thomas it is nighttime.
Yeah, for sure. Those dudes is getting excited. I was telling them today, out of the darkness comes the night. So, but yeah, right, because there's been some dark times or whatever around there the past few years. But, once again, shout out to Coach Henderson for keeping that program afloat and just, once again, taking on the job. He knew it was a tough one or whatever and just doing what he did and passing the torch to me. But, those kids is excited. And that's just one thing, and, when I went through the interview process, one of the second interviews, some of the kids were on the panel.
Okay.
And one of the kids told me, he was like, Coach, just stop talking. I'm ready to go down to the equipment room and play right now. One of my former coaches and former players, Antonio Hall, he was telling me, he was like, man, Quad, he was like, you have one of the most affectionate personalities ever. Yeah. So I believe that, Christ blessed me with that personality or whatever to do what I'm doing right now.
Right.
So just to attract them, to do positive things. And like I say, just sitting down at lunch with those kids today and seeing the look in their eyes, it's like, okay, win, lose, or draw, man, we're going to have some fun and we're going to take a few names while we doing it, you know? So.
Oh, that's great, Coach. I'm excited about it. I'll be able to keep an eye on you. We'll be able to keep an eye on you from the view from the inside.
Yeah.
Hopefully we have you on the show after a big win. I know there's some dogs on your schedule.
Oh yeah. I mean, we start off our schedule with Strasburg.
Yeah.
Strasburg went to the playoffs last year, won a playoff game, and we go down there. To Strasburg. So yeah, right. The schedule is unforgiving. Right. No time to pout, no time to cry, no time to feel sorry for yourself. We gotta lace our boots up tight and hit the ground running. So Strasburg will be coming. I mean, we'll just let it all hang out, and we'll take the schedule week by week, and take it on the chin and give it a little.
Well, we know this. And the Knights will be coming too.
Oh yeah, for sure. And just once again, let the chips fall their way where they may, and once again, we just having the attitude that there's unfinished business.
Yeah.
Another one of my coaches is Coach Shalimar Gilmore. He played for McKinley a few years back, played running back. He was over at St. Thomas Aquinas with us when we were out there the last time we had some success. And, me and him, once again, we so excited to be reunited and back out there. And me and him was up at the school the other day talking to the kids. He was like, man, Coach, we back.
Yeah.
We back.
That's awesome.
So it ain't that we coming, we back.
That's right.
And we back to claim what's ours, and we back to handle some unfinished business. And once again, we know it's a process, and we know nobody's going to feel sorry for us. It's Stark County football. It's Northeast Ohio football. Nobody cares.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they're going to come after us, and that's okay. Because guess what? It's going to make us better. It's going to make us better. So, yeah, right. We got Strasburg week 1, a playoff team. We got to go down there to Strasburg. They'll be ready to get us out of there as soon as possible. You know what I mean? But for 4 quarters, we're going to battle and we're going to just try our best. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, Coach. That's exciting. It's It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, right.
It'll be a countdown real soon for you about how many days till game one.
Yes, sir.
Coach, we appreciate you coming out tonight. Wish you the best of luck. We'll
yes,
keep
sir.
our eye on you.
Yes,
we know
thank
you're going to do great things.
Thank you. Thank
for
you.
those young men. We
yes,
know
sir.
that.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us tonight on a special edition of The View from the End Zone on YSN Live.